All right. Megan Phillips. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fernanda, what's your last name?
Campos.
Campos. All right. I'm Steve. Great to meet you. Thanks. You reached out to me.
I sure did.
So just feel comfortable. I might interrupt, as I said, a couple times. Just stop. Start again. Let's chat. Tell me about yourselves. What are you into? What you're interested in? Tell me your backgrounds first.
I think it's good to start with us. That's what we're here for.
Sure.
Okay, great.
I went to the University of Gainesville and I studied biomedical engineering. And I did a co-op, which is basically an extended internship for 7 months at Edwards Life Sciences, which is where I met Megan, actually.
And so where's Edwards? Where is that? What do they focus on?
Transcatheter medical devices, for the most part. A lot of them are for heart failure.
It's mostly heart valves.
So you did the undergrad, and then you did co-op, which is sort of an internship, right?
Yes.
And then you just joined them as a company.
Yeah, and then I was able to join as a full-time employee through their technical development program, which basically means that you get to be an engineer, but also rotate through 4 different sections of the company. So that has been a lot of fun.
Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Mexico, but I lived all throughout Latin America for, I think, like 15 years of my life, and then I ended up moving here to Florida.
Wow, so I've been in engineering, and there are very few Spanish-speaking engineers that I've run into. The Venn diagram with women Spanish engineers, it's like present. So you must be the only one.
Now, I mean, there are some Hispanic engineers within Edwards Life Sciences, but if you Google it, it's like 1% of the engineers in the world are Hispanic women.
Hispanic,
Yeah.
1%.
That's crazy.
You've already broken some serious ceilings. And you've been there how long?
I've been working here for 2 years, actually.
Where, Megan, I knew you once when you were a little wee kid on roller skates, but now you're an adult woman. So tell me about what you've been doing.
I went to university at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I did 3 years of mechanical engineering, switched to biomedical in my 4th year after doing a co-op at Edwards Life Sciences. I ended up falling in love with biomedical rather than the mechanical side. And since then, I've had about 3 years at Edwards. I also did the rotational program that Farrah's talking about. 4.5, 5-month rotations. I've done mostly R&D so far. I'm in manufacturing currently. Hit a couple rotations in upstream marketing and manufacturing as well.
Oh, we got to talk about that. That's
Yeah.
huge. And so you were there a little longer? You didn't join at the same time, did you?
We were co-ops at the same time.
She did.
She called you boss lady. You set it up. So I was wondering what that
It's girl
meant.
boss.
Huh?
It's girl boss. No, we girl boss together.
Well, yeah, this is actually, when you reached out, and the reason I said, let's do a podcast, even though it's up to you if you want to distribute it. I had a previous one with Christy Shear. I don't know if you ever met her. She's also a friend, a saleswoman in the diabetes field. And I thought, I need to do more women in the professional world, right? And then when you reached out, I'm like, wait, an engineer woman? Oh, score. And actually, one of the reasons I really was excited is, Hannah Keogh. I'm supposed to do one with her down the road. And I was looking forward to a woman engineer. And now you broke the wind. That's and that's not what you think. This is when you ride bicycles.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. But cool. All right, that's awesome. So you've been there. You've a couple rotations. Talk to me about what you want to talk to me about, because I saw roughly you're really impressive that you sent a bolt of things you want to talk about in advance. Actually, reaching out to someone in your generation is kind of rare, and that by itself is going to be ahead of many of your peers, because most people don't do that. And getting a kitchen cabinet of mentors, as Galloway would say, is like critical for any bootstrap up. Throw them at me. What kind of questions you have, and let's chat about what you want to be when you grow up.
Great. Well, I think a great place to start is just for context for you to explain your background in a nice summary form and how you ended up in med device and what that looks like. Or not med device, but the medical world.
Well, so I'm an engineer by training, and that's why I know there are very few women engineers. And when I went to engineering school, it was 1 in 7 in my class.
Oh, well.
I think in biomedical, yes. When I was mechanical, it was like 1 in 10 were women.
As soon as you get very specialized, it gets even more dilute.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In my undergrad, I worked in a research lab in mass spec and had an opportunity to use some of my other skills in computer science and do some early AI work in that area and separating mixtures. And that actual research was what got me into Berkeley, because it's kind of embarrassing. My undergraduate engineering chemistry class had like under 5 people. And I won the outstanding graduated senior, but it was only 5 people. Berkeley just, hey, that's cool. And he did some research, so he let me in. And Berkeley, as you know, and actually in chemistry is like the #1 department in the world. And so I had interfaced with like the top-notch students in the world.
Cool.
And I've always just been around really smart people. And so you know that. That's just, I've always said, if you're going to do anything, just surround yourself with really smart people. And almost osmosis, you'll do some cool things. At Berkeley, I had done so much engineering that I just said, hey, look, I don't need to take classes. And at Berkeley, all you need to do is write a thesis, give an oral presentation, and do an oral exam, and then publish. That was it. Classes weren't required. And I'd taken all the classes anyway. So I zoomed through Berkeley in about 2.5 years and got my PhD in an area that's actually really powerful today, AI, neural network computing. But I intersect it with protein structure and biomolecules, which are just nature's machines. And so that always excited me. And believe it or not, when I'm in my graduate office, my graduate research advisor, there's this little pamphlet from a marketing department from a company by the name of Molecular Design. And I was reading upside down, and I kind of spun it around and took down the number, and I contacted them while I'm still doing my research and interviewed and got a job. I told my research director, I got a job, I got to go. He goes, hey, that's all we need to do. You're going to stay academia or get a job.
Yeah.
MDL, or Molecular Design, was selling to pharmaceutical companies in preclinical research. So this is a little bit different from what you're doing. You're post-clinical approved typically, or working on approved devices, where because there's human trials involved, it takes long and there's requirements you have to deal with. Preclinical, we're less regulated. So we can be a little more cavalier, even though you still have to be careful, but it's not to the level you would have to go through. So I say this is because it's very important, a caveat, the advice I might be able to give to you with respect to medical devices. I've done a lot of interface with people who've worked in those areas, and I have a good idea, but I've spent more time with people who actually have worked on drugs to bring them to the point of testing in humans, which it takes a lot longer than a device. MDL gave me an opportunity to interface with every company on the planet and pharmaceutical development. And I was in marketing. And so that's why when we were chatting earlier, I said to you, marketing is key. I remember distinctly getting my first business card that said customer marketing, and I felt disgusted, like I was a salesman, like a car salesman. Did you feel that way ever? Like when you're marketing co-op, did you get a feel that's like slimy and just not genuine?
I think a lot of engineers have that perception. And Fair also did a rotation through marketing, so she can speak to this as well. As my manager at the time was also an engineer in his previous life, and he kept making comments, expecting me to like, marketing. But I didn't feel that way. I see the challenge, especially in early stage marketing, of taking something that's honestly quite intangible and trying to quantify it and put it into something tangible that you can create off of.
Yeah. When in your marketing interactions, were they with customers that were giving input to existing devices, or were you giving interfaces with customers at all?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was lucky enough to do quite a bit of voice of customer. It was mostly next gen devices. So things that weren't necessarily set in stone. We're working on potentially sending it through a new approval pathway.
That's huge, because that you're a key conduit to development engineering, right? And you have that. You can speak 2 different languages, basically, which is, in my opinion, in the generation moving forward, especially with AI, the people who are most employable or can employ the most people are the folks that can do design through words, natural language, and have it translate to either code or computer instruction, which is what AI does for you, to implement. Actually, implementing is, if that's all you do, your job will be very limited. Your prospects will be very limited, because implementation is something that is being codified in AI today. So marketing, you have a taste for it, which is huge, because that will be your #1 challenge in any venture you do, is getting your product out there and people aware of it, #1, and 2, trust it, especially in this field.
Well, in the very early stages, I think a lot of startup advice and books speak to wanting to focus mostly on the product
Yeah.
and make sure it's addressing the right need and is good, at what point do you think it becomes marketing?
It's an outstanding question. If you're in a space with which you're not really doing any new, breaking new ground, you're just sort of me tooing a technology, I agree with that sentiment. If, however, you're having to do like a Steve Jobs, where you have this vision where you expect the world to change around you, then I disagree with that, if that means anything to you. So it's like you almost have to lead people into a new world of your vision, but that's if it's a brand new technology. So as you're thinking today, are you thinking just sort of one step next gen of the technologies you're working on right now? Or are you thinking, let's just go for it, something way out there that no one really is thinking about yet?
We are looking to address an unmet need. I'd say we're leaning towards something novel rather than trying to do something over again, but better.
What's an unmet need in this area right now?
We're in that phase.
You're just right.
Mhm.
I remember when I was doing the tours around Sand Hill to try to raise money up in the Bay Area, there were some VCs who would not talk to us if we said, oh, we need you to sign a non-disclosure. Because they're like, yeah, we've got tons of people who would tell us whatever, and you might have the best idea in the world. And I can guarantee you there's no less than 10 people on the planet who are thinking, already working on, or maybe already have a product that exists that you just don't know about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I preface that by saying, if you have an idea, don't worry about it. Or if you don't want it to go anywhere and you want to keep it secret, we won't, send it.
No, we really don't know yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you genuinely
Like,
don't know
We
yet.
have certain kind of like ideas that we've like played with.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll definitely reach out to you once we have something more solid and maybe chat it out.
What are some of the ideas you've been talking about?
We expanded, brainstormed a ton, got like some close to 100 ideas,
Okay.
ranked it, and decided to take a step back again and think about how we wanted to strategize going about this and doing it in a smart way. So we started looking at the biodesign process.
So you're constraining your thinking towards what you should or want to do. Is that right?
What do you mean by that?
I have this honor of being both a PhD scientist and an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And so you as engineers may have worked with scientists, and they're a different breed. I mean, there are people who take stuff apart, engineers put things together, but they think differently. And scientists often don't get constrained by what is possible. They just assume engineers are going to solve the problem. So are you constraining your thinking towards what your engineering can do in terms of solving problems? Or are you constraining it? Well, how are you constraining it?
What a great question. I think there's a level of, we have ideas that are wildly outside our skill set.
That's what you need.
That's a great idea.
Let's talk about that one, because that is critical.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So you know how there's all these streaming services nowadays?
Yes.
And I find myself and a bunch of people my age, most of my friends, it spans generations as well. I don't want to sign up for all of them. I don't want to pay for all of them. Ideally, there'd be a way for me to pay for a centralized product that can get me a little bit of access to what I want from these, maybe a limited amount of shows, stuff like that. So it'd be some kind of platform that allows you to access basically all the platforms, but perhaps limited.
Interesting. And so are many of your ideas just outside your scope of biomedical type?
Some
Interests?
of them, but we also align a lot with biomedical as well.
Okay.
And also, I feel like an important thing is to also be passionate about it. And at least myself, and I know Megan too, we both feel very passionate about medical devices, but we definitely have ideas outside of that scope.
Good. Well, not to throw water on your idea here, but it's been done. And there's probably about 5 products out there already do this kind of thing already.
That's great.
And some have already failed. And so
No, why am I not using it?
yeah, marketing, right? It's actually very straightforward to do. But why I wanted to touch on this is because this is a great example that there's a ton of people working in those kinds of areas that don't even have a fraction of your skill sets or grit or what you've had to go through as women in engineering. You definitely want to leverage those skills is what I would strongly recommend. And So when I say constrain your thinking, just bracket it around what you know you're going to thrive at and actually be above so many of those other folks who don't have the opportunities to work in areas that you could. So I'll just throw an idea out there for you based on what you just said. Biomedical to me is typically a device that requires some sort of approval, often a physician's involved in using it. That in itself is very limited in terms of TAM, total available market. When you think about devices, and I'm loaded with them right now, these are actually, in my mind, medical devices, but they are not necessarily termed that, and in fact, intentionally so, because they don't require the approval. And they're accessing a massive consumer population. So in terms of TAM, the Oura Ring, Apple Watch, off the charts better than a heart valve. The costs, of course, are much lower. So, of course, for business, you have to sell a lot more, which is fine. And for me, I would much rather be in a medical device area that's consumer-oriented to factor out physicians, because they will be an ultimate bottleneck. I mean, the regulation is one, but physicians are the biggest pains in the asses to sell to because they're technical, right? And they have to be detailed, and they're typically male, more female lately, but they're pains in the asses. And the sales cycle is just brutal. The sales cycle for an Oura Ring for me, I mean, so the point is, you want to reduce those things, you want to increase your exposures to numbers of people as products in your mindset, and then leverage what you have trained for and intersect those.
Does that mean, do you agree with focusing more on the biomedical device instead of like going into other areas that we don't have necessarily the skill set to leverage that? Is that what you mean?
I think you can go into both. Don't go into an area that's excluding your biomedical trainings, because that itself is that's superpower.
With the medical device world and the medical world in general, there's considerable red tape. You need more funding.
Yeah.
The timeline to launch is perhaps longer because you have to meet all the standards and stuff along those lines. I would love to hear about your experience with that and if that's a factor at all in whether to pursue med device versus something else instead. Because wearables are an option.
Yeah.
But that's also a luxury good. It's not necessarily, well, okay, luxury is maybe a strong word.
No, I get your point. It's capital intensive. And then you think about raising money. My first most strong recommendation ever is to avoid, if at possible, of raising any money, if you can. But unfortunately, a lot of times you need to raise money.
Yeah.
Non-dilutive revenue, meaning revenue coming from grants or product sales that's not basically taking ownership from you on a company. That's what I would recommend putting attention on. Because at the end of the day, even when you do raise money, you ultimately still need to show revenue flow to actually keep raising more. And so you're going to have to do it anyway. You might as well do it as soon as possible. And if you don't prostitute yourself early on and give away a huge portion of the company early on, which you'll have to do if you raise money, you will be in so much better position moving forward. For me, my perspective is, and I'm a failure of a CEO, and I'll say this openly because I have not yet exited my company. I'm a very successful CEO in that I've kept my company a going concern for over 20 plus years during some of the toughest times, and through 9/11, through the too big to fail housing crisis, through the pandemic. A ton of our customers and partners just disappeared. And while I haven't achieved an exit yet, I'm sort of staging and getting there slowly. And I think we will potentially have an exit in the not too distant future. They're going to be pushing, they being the people that provide money, unless they're friends and family. That's a whole other discussion. If you're going to screw your friends and family, you don't expect to ever have Thanksgiving to get together. Right. And let's get another story of friends and family. But if you raise money from institutional or ideally angels who are the ones who've done it themselves and they use their own money, that's the ideal if you're going to raise money. But they're often going to want to see a return. The best are angels who recognize, and return meaning soon, within not a year or two. Most are recognizing returns are 10 years away or more. But you just have to be careful with raising money. I've seen too many raise money and blow through it. Sometimes the best way to operate is when you don't have it and you're in starvation mode almost, and you get really efficient and you can do things that you would never have done before because you had a bunch of money because you're sloppy and, And with programming, people, when they just, oh, we don't need to optimize for memory, we'll just buy it. It's cheap. But the engineers that put the first man on the moon, they had to think really hard because they had to get on the size of these tiny computers. So it's the same concept. You're constrained based on finances. So I would encourage, if you don't have to raise money, don't. A wearable play doesn't necessarily require capital intensive operations if you leverage existing wearables and find a space that they haven't been able to play in. Oura Ring is a perfect example. A ton of sensors on this puppy. I've been capturing a crap load of data on me to try to optimize sleep. 8 Sleep is a device I have at home, which is a cooling device for your bed. The temperature can go up and down with your phases of sleep. Cools you into deep, warms you into REM. And originally it only did that once, but now it does it with your cycles. It is effectively sleeping on a stethoscope. There are more sensors on the bed than people even imagine. And 8 Sleep is just getting this massive bed and mattresses and all that stuff out there. And so they don't have the wherewithal to go after things like, wait a second, did you know sleep and dosing in drugs is very strongly interrelated? And if people did that study, they would clearly see that if someone had a shitty night of sleep, you got to be really careful with how you dose and the time of day you dose for a drug. So there's data you can gather and build models, computational models, and that could be your IP play, where someone else built a device. You understand how it interworks. If you have to actually get in there and actually tweak it a little bit and put in an adapter, it's less expensive than doing the original device. You as engineers can do that. But the interface, not just the UI with humans, but the interface to what I would call application utility, it's the world's playground for you on that. So think about that when you think about wearables or devices.
You want to go? Okay. I have a question regarding that. So I know we were touching a little bit on maybe leveraging the skills that we already have. Our skills are mostly mechanical, not really electrical or computational. However, do you think that it would be ideal for us to maybe dive into it ourselves, or like at what point do we start outsourcing these things, or like maybe even bringing people that have those skills as well? How would you determine that?
So the number one expense in any business is people. And the more people you bring on, the more expensive it's going to be. Yeah. And so the point about mechanical, there's so many opportunities in this space. But do not feel that just because you don't have the experience, a double negative. Because you don't code doesn't necessarily mean you need to hire coders. You could use AI to do that for you. I have, with $100 a month, engaged Claude AI to code more for me in the last 5 months than I have in almost 40 years. Yeah, as I've said before, I've coded maybe a few million lines of code in 30 years, and I've coded easily 6 million lines of code in this last 6 months. It's crazy. And as long as you know what you want, you just tell it what to do, and it will code it for you. So don't even think about hiring software engineers. You just have to, you can get that coded for you. Machine interfaces, I maybe need some, but a lot of times you won't. But there's opportunities in mechanical, biomechanical. Our bodies are incredibly well designed. And you just think about biomechanics, what you do, obviously. Walking is probably the best exercise for you. Think about what you do when you walk. It could be clothing interfaces. Interfaces between clothing and wearables. They could open up a whole new world for you. So when you say unmet need, when you said at the beginning, what kind of unmet needs are you thinking of? What grand, like audacious things, in your opinion, are unmet, that are just huge, that you would, if you had your way and you could just wave a magic wand, what would you want to change in this world?
That's a big question.
It is a big question, but we think that the market for, or I guess like the research and everything that has been done related to female oriented medicine,
Uh-huh.
it's definitely very outdated.
Yeah.
And
It
that
never
is-
existed. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
no, it's definitely very, for lack of a better word, archaic.
Yes.
The way that we get mammograms,
Yep.
pap smears, like
Yep.
any kind of ordinary procedure. And
Uh-huh.
that's something that we feel passionate about it.
Yeah.
So that is something that I would want to change.
That was a good answer. We have talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on that. And it's largely because the medical arena has been male dominated. And when you take one of those examples, there's no reason with today's technology that you couldn't do an at-home pap smear. And get
We Googled that.
Yeah, that was one of our ideas.
that's-
Great idea.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's just like, and you could use iPhones and imaging, and you wouldn't need to send shit to labs. Really? Radiology is a form of medicine that is largely AI driven today. Now, that's not exactly mechanical, but who cares? It's still leveraging the bio element of your training and the woman element.
Yeah.
It still uses at least two or and engineering by definition. You got my damn TV on, and we know you're engineers.
Yeah.
Flavio, so you just push the button, dude.
She worked really hard.
I pushed it twice, actually.
Yeah. Well, you know what the funny thing is, and I was just loving hearing that conversation back there because I just so miss hanging with engineers. It's like the first question I heard back there in the observation room is it plugged in?
I
But-
asked that.
But it's so perfect because I can't tell you how many times people are like, I can't get this to work. I guess, yeah. So, but that's not just plugged in the wall, but even as it plugged in, it might have been unsettled. But no, you have superpowers, leverage as many. If you don't get them all, fine. But all right, women's health. What other? You had an idea you were thinking about?
No, that was a good one. I have a lot of ideas. None of them are coming to mind in this
Putting you on
moment.
spot. I'm sorry.
I
This
know.
is,
Let me look back at our sheet.
Yeah. No. This is like I said. When this whole actually, I consider this man cave now, woman cave today. You're outnumbered me. Is a place where people come. They're supposed to be unprepared, but then they just respond like LLMs, large language models. They take a context coming in and they just sort of predict what the next word would be, and they use that and then predict the next word. And that's kind of like how these kinds of flows go. And sometimes in this room, it's just music largely, but there's lightning in a bottle. So you might get one of those ideas. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I'll report back if
If
it
it
kicks
kicks up.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, God, this guy, I can't believe he's coming at me hard. And really, it just impresses shit. How old are you two? Same age, roughly? How
We're
old?
25.
I'm 26.
Nice.
Yeah.
But, at that age, I don't think I would have ever reached out to someone that's 58, turning 59 soon. I would never have done that. And I think in large part because I didn't have the network of friends that had, or parents had a network of friends that I could reach out to. But you're so far ahead of the game on this. I mean, it's just crazy to think that you're even approaching anyone above, at this level. But one of the things that I think back in my own career, how I got to become a CEO in my 30s was I got close to power, which meant close to revenue very quickly in my career. And that's marketing, business development, sales. I didn't sell. I was business development at the best. But I reported in my next major job out of MDL, which I, by the way, used in surveying all the different companies to find the best company that met my requirements, and that was Affimax, which is like a Xerox PARC of the Bay Area in biotech at the time. And they brought together engineers. Alex Zaffaroni brought together photolithography engineers, chemists, biologists, and they had this vision of generating molecules with machines on solid support. It was during this era called combinatorial chemistry. They wanted to build full proteins and they wanted to build small molecule drugs. And the things that worked were like DNA. Shit, that's not as useful. Guess what? They spun out Affymetrix, which became the gene chip company, which helped sequence the human genome, which helped us get out of a pandemic. I mean, it's just like, what? And Affymetrix that spun out of Affymax made more money for Glaxo Wellcome, who acquired Affimax for $500 million. $500 million at that time was a lot, nothing today, but they acquired Affimax for that and then had this big operating budget that cost way too much. And they were not making much money on that at all. They were losing it. But the spin out with Affymetrix, the spin out, the sort of the failure, if you will, in the original business mindset was what made the original acquiring company so much money. It was just crazy. So whatever you think of as a business strategy, expect that there will be things that aren't going to be exactly what you want, but might have opportunity and take equity positions in them. And those ultimately might be bigger than what your original plan was in the first place. And so when you see these companies kind of reverse doing this, Facebook becoming Meta, Google becoming Alphabet, they just had all these different spin outs and they're like, oh, we better wrap it with something on top. Think of it the other way. You have something that spawns out other project activity. That's just something to put in the back of your mind that will be big for you down the road. So that's kind of like me telling my 4-year-old daughter that calculus is something you should do and don't do all this bullshit addition and subtraction. I'm kind of a little ahead of the game. I think you're asking me other questions. I'm like throwing you out some of these nuggets that I know in a few years might be real. They might hit home. That's why we want a recording like this, because I think you might find it real valuable.
No, thank you.
So,
yeah, it's very helpful.
Yeah, but are you okay on time? I mean, I can go forever on this stuff.
I'm good. I think I have like 30 more minutes,
Okay,
if that's
cool.
okay.
Yeah.
I got time.
Perfect.
You had questions, and I know we should hit some of them, but I want to hit you with some. Yeah. So I know the toughest thing to tell someone is like, pick a project and go for it, decide what you're going to do. And I take this for granted because, again, that's a scientist in me. I had to come up with a novel project area at Berkeley in order to get a PhD. If it was written in a book, I wouldn't get a PhD. I had to be able to publish something that was novel. So I was just kind of doing that daily for just years and years and years. And then as an engineer, I could implement. So I was new idea, implement, new idea, implement. And that's, if you could do that, I can't teach the science side, but you probably have that anyway. It just hasn't been as developed because they beat you down in engineering school, right? It's like, you don't need 5 digits. It's like, use them as integers for Christ's sake, It's like, the bridges, whatever. The weight of the cables are important, but just put a lump sum number there or something. The statics and dynamics, Yeah. Remember bridges fell? Remember that one where it's like oscillating?
Oh, yeah.
History.
Yeah, exactly. So real world observation is so key. So what you observe something as a woman with women's health that a ton of women recognize. And it's just, man, there's so many unmet needs in that area. I hear it all the time. Like, oh, it's clamping of the breast. It's just bullshit. Should not be doing that. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And no, in fact, my guess is a quick MRI, which is non-invasive, open hair, would be as good, if not better, than slamming a boob in a plates.
Is the difference there like cost of CT MRI? Because you can with that.
Yes.
In other methodologies, they
Yes.
don't though.
You just nailed it. And so one of the issues with the medical world today is it's guided by business, insurance constrained. The standard of care today is shit. It's absolute shit. And I know a bunch of physicians where I'm feeding them novel or new research that's been published that they don't even have time to read. And they're like, look, I couldn't practice that on my patient. It's not standard of care. I've got licenses I have to worry about, right? And I'll throw this idea out at you because I would love to work with people that enhance this further. We've had some friends that recently passed that have been, cancer has just been like a big killer. So is cardiovascular, as you know. It's like number one, cardiovascular, right?
Yeah.
The number of prescription medications that seniors take is atrocious. I mean, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just like, what the hell are you doing? Very few drugs are tested in combination like that. So it's dangerous as shit.
Yeah.
You add to the fact that, and this is the thing that is mind-numbing to some people, and it's obvious. Most pharmaceutical drugs have come from nature. Most medicines come from intellectually property protected variants of what ultimately was found in nature in one way or another. Natural product screening is a technique where you screen muds and sludges and seawater to try to find potential activities that then the pharmaceutical companies can say, okay, those are complicated molecules. We can't patent them. So let's come up with a molecule that can act just like that, make it smaller, make it easier and less expensive to make, call it our own, have a 20-year protection on it, and print money off of it. That's the business of pharmaceutical industry. It's horrifying. I have computational tools that help people do that. We have tools that help people take a natural product substance and come up with a molecule, or say, is another molecule looking like that same molecule to a protein. It might, to a patent examiner, look different, but to a protein, the molecule machine, it grabs on different parts in the same way that that natural product does. I mean, we're using this for decades. What I've recently been doing is using this technology to take existing drugs that I know people take and say, because I know we can easily do this, find foods or supplements or things that people can routinely access and say, what are they most similar to, those drugs? So as an example, low-density LDL is a common, cholesterol as people call it, is a common area that has been optimized with the pharmaceutical industry through tests and statin drugs where they pay a ton of money to lower that LDL. I've taken my tools and screened food databases to see what other food substances contain these kinds of drugs. The molecular machines that look similar at the small level. Mushrooms contain lovastatin in some cases, which is actually a drug. Reishi mushrooms contain a compound that is almost identical to some of the top-selling statins. So I have recently said, oh, you know what? I monitor my LDL all the time. I'm going to take some reishi powder and just put it in my supplements. And I will continue to do this I did it for like a week. I saw my LDL numbers come down 30 points in that time.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was just a quick validation. So I would love to find a way where citizen scientists could get a way to take their own health in their own hands and use foods and, most importantly, movement and exercise, which is why mechanical, I think, is critical, and sleep. And that cocktail, I think, would be more impactful to our current aging population and medical welfare than like any pharmaceutical drug, any standard of care operation, whatever. So that's just kind of what my big audacious vision is.
No,
So-
I love it. I think this is connected. It made me think of something. So I am training for a marathon, and it's very fun because never before have I cared a lot about nutrition and physical activity and the kind of strength training that you have to go through. And I think that the whole idea of taking care of your own health and knowing you need to intake a certain amount of protein, you need
Yes.
to intake all of these things so you can like move forward and achieve your goal of running a marathon or even just living a healthy lifestyle. It's something that it's very interesting to me, especially because I feel like that knowledge right now, it's mostly in physical therapists or in like sports medicine physicians that have been through years and years of schooling, instead of just you being able to have that information at the grip of your hands. So I totally agree.
Yeah,
It's
resonate.
a great idea.
You might be sore, or tired, or bored. What's your thinking?
Brains, it's working hard.
Yeah,
It's paying
yeah,
a lot of attention.
yeah.
No, I agree. I would love to address something like that. I think a challenge with that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, is that so much of that is people actually taking something like that into their own hands before it becomes a big problem. And I think with that, talking about the total addressable market again, it seems like that group of people who not only care but are willing to do it before it really negatively impacts them, I feel like would be smaller.
And you're so bright. It's exactly right. I live on the bleeding edge and have in my entire life, and I'm an early adopter and everything. And what you're describing is really the world of laggards. But as an engineer, you just also, I heard it right in your words, in order to solve a problem, you have to define it first. And most people just don't recognize there's a problem, and they let alone define it, right? So there's an educational element. Is that something you could solve? Lead people to it?
With marketing. Yeah, that would be a challenge. It's not necessarily an immovable challenge, but I think in thinking about similar things where I just wish I had access to this, or I had more easily accessible information on XYZ, I think a lot of it is people need to have the appetite for it. Like even, I don't know if you use the Yucca app.
No, I'm not aware of it. What is it?
It's cool. It's something that I use, and I tell all my friends about it, and nobody's downloaded it so
look
far.
at it. What does it do?
Basically, you can scan products. And it tells you the risks associated with certain chemicals or preservatives that are used based on scientific papers, and then you can like click on it. It says, this is the substance, this is the risk associated with it, so this is the score we're giving it.
Yeah.
It's solving a problem, but I find that when I tell people, they're like, yeah, it's not necessarily something that's top of mind as a problem to solve for people.
It's true.
As we were talking about before, marketing is one of the biggest challenges, right? And it's not just awareness, it's getting people to want to consume something. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it, sort of thing. Often, the best, most successful companies have been a result of early adopters being the champions. If you think about it, the cults of people. And my guess is if you had a couple other friends who really just like also engaged, and they weren't the ones who sort of discovered it, so to speak, they heard it through you, the Yucca app, but they're using it, they're going to talk about it. And other people might adopt it for the different reasons that they're describing. They've positioned it slightly different than that you positioned it, because just as you described it to me, I had to ask you, right? I think I asked a couple times, well, what does it do? What does it do? It's because you were very excited by it. Your passion was there, but sometimes you have to get that one step removed of the marketeer to say, okay, let's remove that passion element and just like find what would appeal to them, but then also demonstrate by eating your own dog food kind of thing. And so I've seen it before in products that I've marketed and tried to sell. The founder's passions can only go so far. Right? I mean, look at like Tesla. It's a brand. Well, Tesla's owners often help sell more Tesla than Elon Musk did, right? Just because they're just so passionate about it. Apple's known for this, right? The strategies that they were taking. I remember a time when they were getting people involved in the early search rank, and there were just passionate searchers who were just telling everyone, oh, look at this. Google is amazing, right? So having that network, and Facebook, oh, that's a great example. It started on the Harvard campus network kind of thing. So I think, pick your friends well, I guess is another way to say it. So make sure you have the network of folks that you can lead to. And in fact, it was one of our friends who recently passed. I really felt it would be important to do a celebration of life for that person who was at the end of life. And I felt that they should be a part of that, because I had to do a celebration of life eulogy for my sister years ago, and she passed from the same disease. And I knew that when someone had pancreatic cancer in their end of life, it's likely they're not going to recover from it, especially with current medical science. And so some people thought I was being insensitive to have a celebration of life app while the person was still living. Mm-hmm. But I'm like busting for it. I'm still coding it up. And I said, I'll just call it something different. Let's call it a toast. And like you can toast someone who's living still. And provided it to the friend's family, and they were reading the toasts that the friends were making. And they could see him, which is really what someone should experience, right? And I was so passionate about this, I was fighting with my wife and others, like, this is really important work for me. It's like I'm under pressure because I don't know how many days he has left, but I want him to read what people have to say. And it turns out, people enjoyed it. And then when he passed, other people toast, and they think they still toast. I had another friend who passed about a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago. And I said, I can just repurpose it. I repurposed it, called it New Domain Toast Our Friend, and then put their name against it, and then sent it around. People are toasting for that. And then like 2 days ago, like my best friend on the planet passed. And I'm like, it just rocked my world. But I repurposed the app for him, And it's on a server I manage. It's in the
Mhm.
Google Cloud. It's a cool app. You can write a little toast and upload pictures or videos and things like that. I actually used natural language AI to code it, and I did it in like 3 days.
That's cool.
This sort of thing, 5 years ago, I would need 10 engineers. I would probably have to spend $500,000 to build. And I did it for under $100 with Claude AI that I use for other things every single day by myself, coding it, running a Google server for $12 a month. And I bought a domain. It's just pennies on the dollar. No engineers involved, just me. Well, I'm an engineer, but you know. And so as I was looking at this, in terms of adopting it, this is a very difficult thing to do, is make a toast for someone who you try to summarize your relationship with them and just a little toast. And I'm just watching the human dynamic. You know, I found that if you seed it, obviously I make the first toast because I did it. But then I ask someone who I know is close to them. And I said, can you put a toast in there as well? And I need them to test it because I don't want someone else's name to appear because I'm repurposing this stuff. And I did it for a few folks. But if you seed it with enough folks that have enough other contacts, that's marketing that will spread. And I'm confident that ultimately more and more people will have access to this in the friend network that I did this for. I'm not trying to do business out of it. I've thought of business ideas about it. And I'll throw one out there right for you so you can think about how I think. I feel social media is a way for companies to just monetize people, and they're evil. I try to leverage them to try to confuse them by throwing different things on social media because I'm an AI guy. It's like one day I'm throwing music, the next I'm doing political posts or something, but I'm just trying to get it confused about me. And it doesn't know how to market to me. That's not a business model in my mind. Selling ads, bullshit. For something like this, I can see a business model in which we take all the content that people toast, very heartfelt messages, pictures about someone's life that aren't monetized to advertisers, but instead we use it to build an AI that is 100% exclusively owned by the family. No money whatsoever required. They might need to pay the company to keep the server going and manage it. The only thing I would ask in return is that if they ever decide to monetize that AI, and there will be people who want to do that because there will be people with expertise. Like if you're a lawyer or doctor and they know so much, they want it to be them giving advice, that can be embedded in an AI. That family, if they're going to monetize whatever this immortal memory kind of concept is that I'm talking about, that a small royalty for a period of time be paid to the company just to keep it a going concern so it can do this kind of thing for others, because it's a true pay it forward sort of thing, but none of this bullshit by you're trying to monetize the people who are using the free service. So that's kind of the business model I'm thinking a little bit about with this sort of thing. But for the moment, I'm just like, no, I'm doing this for friends because it's like, it's heartfelt. It's therapeutic for me to code when I'm like, there's no way my best friend passes, I'm able to do this unless I was able to code all night on this kind of thing. So anyway, I don't know if you learned anything from that concept, but that's, for me, it's meeting unmet need, which in my mind is taking memories of people and making them immortal, because when people die, they take with them their memories.
I like that.
Did I spur on some? I want to hear now some of your ideas. I gave you two of mine. You're the tit for tat. You gave a women's health. It's your turn. I give you some time. You have an idea?
Oh, I was going to ask you a question, actually.
Okay, let's do it.
So it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but you're like, when you come up with your ideas, it seems to me you're thinking of it as one of many things you'll work on. I think for us who've never worked on a business before or thought about spinning something out, it seems like it holds a lot of weight as far as what we choose and what we start working on, and making sure that it's something that we're willing to dedicate years of our lives to, and a lot of work and hours and all that. Do you have any thoughts on, I suppose, which mindset to pursue or how to bridge that gap? Because there is a level that we should be passionate about whatever we choose, but also maybe it's not that serious.
Oh boy. Oh, you are so like an aged soul. I don't know what the phrase is. You're so far ahead of your time and thinking this. Like
Thank
you're
you.
basically saying, Steve, I mean, you're scattered all over the place. We need to
That's not what I
focus.
said.
No, but what I'm saying is you are spot on. You need to focus. Not me. A person, in order to start a new venture who hasn't done this before and is not sitting almost 60 years old in a studio that he owns, right? I mean, it's basically like we're just starting out in our careers. We need to focus on something that when we wake up every morning, we're passionate about. They say, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Mhm.
I just hold that to be true. I enjoy doing multiple things, and therefore I don't feel like I work. I know some people in our friend network retire, and it drives me nuts. It's like, don't retire. Just call back, do something new, but just constantly do what you enjoy, and don't make sure it's not too expensive because you'll run out of money. When you wake up in the morning and you want to do something, it's way different than waking up in the morning and saying, I have to do this, and so we all have different interests, and there's a way to align your interests and monetize your interests. In some cases, it needs to be just so focused, 100% of your interest is just that. I would somewhat discourage that just because it's kind of being like a one-trick pony, and you become less interesting as a person. Not you personally, but you know what I mean? If you're only doing one thing and all you ever talk about, which is what some of these entrepreneurs do. The reason I recommend not doing that is because, yes, it focuses and you get passionate and you can achieve amazing things. But when that leaves your life, and it will, by definition, especially if you take money from others, you will have to exit, which often means you have to be leaving on your own or get fired. It will be taken from you. And if that's all you have no other interests or hobbies or things other projects, other irons in the fire, like my father, who worked till 86 of age, and he retired from his firm. 3 months later, he died. What I strongly recommend you not do, and that's be a one-trick pony. But that's just, again, me. As I said, I'm a failed CEO. I haven't exited yet. So I have some of my investors accuse me of running a lifestyle business. I don't think of it that way. I want to give them an exit. But if you have an opportunity to do a lifestyle business, I strongly recommend doing that. Now, a lifestyle business is basically one where you don't think about exits. It's basically your business is part of your life. You set your schedule around the business, and you're not having to answer to any other investors. You're your own boss, and you employ people or not, but it's like you make money and it's part of your lifestyle.
So how early would you recommend we decide if we want to sell or lifestyle? Like, do we start with the goal that we want to sell this when we get to, I don't know, phase whatever?
Yeah. I don't know if this was one of your bullet questions, but it definitely came to mind when I read your bullets.
Mm-hmm.
I often talk to myself, like how I'm going to talk to people the next day, and I just did a quick scan of your bullets. But one of the phrases that came to mind was something that I did not do, and I regret it. I did not, but you should always begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. I take this to the extreme. I look at the damn dessert on a menu before I actually start ordering my appetizers and entrees and stuff like that. Begin with the end in mind. Had I done that, I would have exited out years ago. And this would be a much bigger studio. And instead of having to fly and take a connection to my friend's service, I'd be flying private. And that just pisses me off when I think about it. But anyway, whole other point. Begin with the end in mind. And when you start something, think about how you're going to exit it. And part of that might be you don't want to exit it. You want this to be a lifelong money-making passion that your family's a part of, that your children, or if you decide to have them, or your future generations benefit from. I was just having this discussion earlier. I believe in standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm a scientist by definition. You as an engineers, by definition, have stood on the shoulders of giants. You didn't have to do, it's H sine of theta. How do we do, what's the vector? I mean, you didn't have to work through the derivatives of that. Someone did it already. You just learned how to do it. And you just exercise those formulas and chugged and plugged. Did you have the HP calculators, the reverse Polish logic stuff? 5 enter 5 times? Well,
TI-84. Ride or die.
I had a Texas Instrument
Do you have a TI?
calculator.
Well, so, but bottom line is you have to stand on the shoulders of giants, and meaning that you shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And I believe that with the families as well. And I think that if there's an opportunity to build generational wealth, I would love to do that. That's one of my quests, is to do that, because I want to make sure that my kids have a foundation. And I think I've done at least at the educational level, but I want to be able to do more. And I want to make sure that their kids, if they have kids, to be the same thing. I know some people subscribe to this, that like I had to work hard, therefore I want my kids to work hard to achieve the same thing I achieved. I don't disagree with work hard part, but I believe that is the grit is genetically, in you as well as nurtured, that most kids from high performers are going to work hard, that they should have little safety nets. I look back, if I had a little bit more of a safety net, I would have taken more risks in my career. And if you're at the point in your lives where you can keep working and making money, great. But on the side, generate this idea or ideas and maybe build a business. And if you can do an entrepreneurial thing where within the company, you do it within the company and they're funding it. That's what I did in one of my first companies. You can learn so many lessons on someone else's dime, because otherwise it's out of your pocket or your investor's pocket. So is there opportunity to do that in your current company? That kind of start a little venture? Is it too
I don't
rigid?
think so.
Yeah.
It would be difficult to convince our company to fund that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very conservative. I mean, Google had 20% time. You heard about that, right? The early days. They might still have it. The people are given like 20% of their time to do anything they want.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like Gmail came out of that,
Oh,
Google
yes.
Docs,
I heard about
right? Google Maps. I mean, all this stuff that they make tons of money on came out of just do what you want.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit though.
Sure.
About having our normal 9-to-5s and perhaps having our side hustle that we develop. At a certain point, assuming that the side hustle goes well, there might be a point to take the leap and make that a full-time gig and be a one-horse pony, maybe for a short amount of time. Do you have any thoughts on when that leap comes, and at what point you don't want to be that one-trick pony anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question again. Boy, I think I heard a podcast. It was Galloway again. Someone asked him the question, what does it mean to be rich? And he defined it really in a nice way. He said, you're rich when your lifestyle doesn't cost any more than your passive income is generating. That's so profound. Your passive income is money made in securities in your portfolio that you're not putting time on. It's just generating money for you. And if your cost to live, whether it's rents, foods, wearables, whatever you're buying, Porsches. No, I've had that for like 20 years.
Oh.
No, it's just, actually, I get a new one every few years. It's the same exact one, so people think it's the same car. It's actually, never mind. But the point is that I'll edit that out because that sounded like a flex, and it's not. It totally is not.
But I know you saw the Porsche.
Exactly.
Literally.
Yeah, we did.
The last thing I do is put that on a podcast. See, I've got the power of edit. Right. No, but bottom line, it's like I've been trying to live below my passive income. Okay. If you're not at that point, it's tough. It's more risky. It's all about risk sharing or shifting. In fact, in raising money, the investors always want to push more risk out to you anyway, because it's not risky for them to cut a check because they often have pools of money. It's risky if you leave your job and you don't have money or a vehicle that's generating money to pay the rent, to pay your lifestyle. That's, I think, maybe a litmus test for you when you maybe get to a point where you feel that you could take that risk where, it maybe be a little tougher for you if you left the job, but if you wanted to truly dedicate your full attention to this new venture and you can't do the 9-to-5 anymore, the only way you should do that is if you're sure that you're going to still have shelter and water, not couch surf at other people's houses. And sometimes the best co-founders are the ones that they're very much aligned on that way. They have maybe they don't have the desires to have the Porsche, or they don't need a lot of money to live. By the way, one of the ways to get some of the top performing sales folks in an organization, which you ultimately will need, is to make sure that they live very expensive lifestyles, because they are constantly working for their commissions at that rate. Meetings, and they give watches and get them very materialistic and stuff like that. But I mean, I never bought into that. It's all about risk and risk tolerance. And when you feel you're ready, and I don't know, just for me, I've noticed that I just have this internal feeling like, yeah, this is right. I remember this in my research at Cal. Like the first experiment I ran using the neural network stuff, got a great result. I said, holy shit, this is right. And it felt so good. I wasn't beating my head left and right. Now, I did in other parts later on, but if you're constantly beating your head on just failure after failure after failure, I mean, unless you're a glutton or a masochist, it's like, maybe just fail fast and move on. And so back to the passion point, you got to enjoy what you do. If you like your 9-to-5 job and you can do it and you pay some nice bills and you're generating and you're investing longer term and building vehicles that are generating cash for that passive income, because you can become rich, it's that point with which you say, what am I most passionate about? And then put your passion into that. It's a long way to get to what your question was, but does it help? I love hanging with young people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No, but seriously, there's a time in your life that you even ask that question, and again, you're so far ahead. I don't think I even began to ask such questions until I was deep in my 40s. Beginning with that in mind, just that in itself is like huge if you're thinking that, and you already were based on your question. And then when would be the right time to do a jump when you still don't even have the idea yet, fully baked? I recommend, make sure the cookie dough is baked. Huh?
Megan and I always joke that we are very deep thinkers. We
Yeah.
sit down and get very philosophical very
should.
fast.
Should. Just make sure you don't take too many hits off something before that. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And it's wood shopping and field testing before you have to spend money on doing it. Because it's really expensive when you spend money on shit and then it fails out there. Yeah, MATLAB.
Just MATLAB.
It's remarkably similar to Python,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, well, I did do C++ for a bit there.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
why?
That's a lost art.
just a little bit. I mean, I feel like the principles, once you have them, you can do it. But yeah, I guess just starting against the whole kind of mountain that you have to get through.
Yeah. In any software, computer science or software engineering curriculum, one of the first things you learn is test first, then code. You build your test suite first.
Yeah.
And so when you talk things out, that's building your test suite. And you're doing it on your own dime and your own time, your own.
It is. I've heard Dimebag, but
Is
not
it nickel?
Nickelback.
Yeah. It's
Nickelback, I was like, the band?
The
That's
band.
inflation for you. That's really funny. That's really, really funny. No,
That's
it's
funny.
yeah, but wood shop the crap out of your ideas and bounce them off and test them with others. But I know that with some people, the more they talk about something, the less likely they are to implement. I'm less concerned about that with two hardcore engineers because, you'll keep at it, When I wake up every morning, I am already looking at lists of to-dos that I've constructed, not from the night before always, but from sometimes days, weeks in advance, or prior. Because I'm constantly saying, oh, it's a cool idea, I need to do this, or cool idea. And so I'm like my own boss in that. Well, I am, but as a CEO, but I'm literally doing that. So do you actually kind of plan out cool things you might want to do, sometimes days, weeks later?
Yeah. I'm a planner.
Are you? How would you characterize yourself? I want to see how good of a combination you are.
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I like to do things. And liking to do things requires planning.
Yeah.
So if I want to go backpacking, I have to go plan that trip.
Yeah.
And the same goes with if I want to work out, I have to, figure out how to fit it into my day.
Yeah.
Well, correct. Fair is definitely more of a planner than I am, where I think you really stick to your plan
I do.
in a way that I don't, where I'll plan something out as a way and understanding how to achieve something. But if I feel like it'll be a little bit better if I change it, once I'm halfway through the plan, then I'll change it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel like days with Meg are more, we have a vague idea what we're going to do, and then we end up having fun either way. And days with me are more like, we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here. Yeah. I agree.
I was the coder behind Steve Jobs. Steve Wozniak, co-founders, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, kind of like the Jeff Bezos. I don't think he had someone. I think it was just kind of himself. Elon Musk is kind of like Galileo. He doesn't really do shit himself. He just popularizes stuff.
Literally.
Yeah. But how would you characterize yourselves in terms of your potential future, entrepreneurship together? That's asking.
That's a
tough.
hard question.
Putting on the spot there, but I already see great things because you saw things she can do that you can't do, and that's critical. But
I think I see it as very much a partnership. I think we're both
Yeah.
very much go-getters and really goal-oriented despite different ways in how we go about it. And that's kind of how we ended up working together, is because we set a goal and we figure out how to get there, and we both push really hard to get there.
No, I feel like we both, so a lot of our friends are also very much like, we want to do our own startup and we want to do our own things. But I feel like both of us started individually to like read books and like inform ourselves. And then we were kind of like, oh, wait, you're also reading a book about this. And that's how we kind of like decided we both have that drive and that passion. We're not just saying it to say it. I think that's why we decided more than anything to be partners.
Oh, and you have formal partnership in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, we fist bumped and
That's probably what
blood
I say.
sisters and stuff. Yeah. No, look. Honestly, it's great you have that, and I wish I had that. In fact, I remember an investor telling me you need 2 trucks. What do you mean? Oh, I think I understand now. Because with just one person and an entrepreneur activity, obviously employees, but just one person, if you're not there, whether it's something happens to you or you're like taking vacation, everything just stops. You need to have a second player there or be ready to never have it stop. I'm on those backpacking trips doing payroll.
That's crazy. You're like, I got a bar.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're on these trips, I think one of your challenges, frankly, and it's a good problem to have as a team even, is the first idea is to really identify and go after, de-risk, go after, hit hard. Because if you have a list of 100 or so, coming up with like that winning idea might be one of the biggest challenges you're facing. Because honestly, if it didn't come off your tongue like that fast, then I know you're still searching. And I threw out a couple ideas that I have had. That's just one of a gazillion that just any given time. I wish I had more time, but AI has given me more time. I've been able to code up things so quickly. I mean, I go from in the morning, an idea, a product requirements document, to even a strategy, how to implement it, give it to Claude, even give it direction. Look, I need you to start in the server pieces first. And I want to, unfortunately, it uses Python. I hate Python. It sucks. Do Python, wrap it with PHP, need some JavaScript in there. Let's work on those pieces, maybe some style sheets. Then the next piece is HTML, JavaScript, whatever. But I know where its weaknesses are. And Python is one of its strengths because it's been trained on so much of it. I let it focus on that, do command line tests. And I just say, boom, I'll have a document, give it to Claude. Sometimes I'll do that while I'm making my coffee. And it's like, zip, I'll finish before I can finish my coffee. And so I'll go upstairs and just start coding. Before lunch, I'll have something that's not only functional, looks pretty damn cool, like I impressed the shit out of myself. I have nothing to do with it. Everything about defining what it could do. And then by the end of the night, I'm like releasing it to other people. I mean, I've done that Toast app, for example, in 3 days. It would have taken 6 months with a bunch of people. I did it in a few days. I actually did it within 3 hours. But in order to stand it up, I was waiting. Should I buy a domain or not? I'm like, you cheap shit. It's $12. Buy a domain, right? But you know what I mean? Right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, just go for it, right?
Yeah.
And get a website out there. And I've heard, and that's why I say, listen to My First Million. Some people literally set up businesses where they say, this is the product. It's not Kickstarter. I mean, that's obviously they don't have it yet. But they say, here's a product. And then they get some pre-orders. And then like 6 months later say, oh, sorry, we had some manufacturing issues. Here's your money back. But at least they got a way to field test, is it going to be something that can sell? And they put like no money into it to do that. So those guys will give you some great ideas on how to stand up businesses quickly. I think the big challenge will be, what is that damn true unmet need? Yes, world changing, that we're passionate about, and you won't even hesitate to leave your job, even if it means you take a little more risk because you know it's the right thing.
The game-changing aspect of it, I think, is the goal, but I think it's also prohibitive to starting.
Why?
I think that's a big requirement to put on an idea, and we have good ideas because we look most of them up and they exist already.
Yeah.
So it can't be that bad.
It's validation.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
validation.
Oh,
100%.
someone thought about it.
Yeah, we have really great ideas.
Yeah.
That's why I said a Me Too is one thing you could do. Just be ready to be in competition with others. And I always prefer to be in competition myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I run faster that way. I climb faster that way. And I don't worry about who else is out there. But it's up to you. I mean, you might cut your teeth on a Me Too. The fact that you're in your 20s even thinking about this is awesome, right? But you're also at ages, I'm assuming you don't have a house and mortgages and multiple kids running around. I'm assuming that's the case. Is that true?
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of thinking about it right now is we can be more risk tolerant.
Yes.
Being that we're engineers,
Yeah.
we are also very thoughtful about the risks that we are taking
Yeah.
and making sure that it's worthwhile before we do so. But now's the time. I don't even have a dog.
No, literally. Nothing. Just me.
Yeah, it's just me.
You gotta sometimes be careful with what you say, thinking they're not in the room. I was in this one business where there was a boardroom and people would leave and say, well, you guys talk about this. And they would run around and there was this side room that was right up against the boardroom and they could hear it amplified, even like whispers.
That's crazy.
So there's another business that I was in. I'm just thinking back. I didn't mention names, did I? No, I didn't. I just said businesses, right? There's another business. We visited a pharmaceutical company and we were getting driven back. I was actually with the CEO of the company. And so it was a high level meeting and we were coming back and they said, we had to get to the airport. And they said, oh, we can get you a car. And so they had a delivery guy come up and the guy's wearing the hat. It was in the UK and they're driving on the other side and stuff. And we're having our conversation and stuff. And then CEO's doing this. I said, what's going on? I'll tell you later. So, we get out of the car and he goes, I've been told that pharma actually puts executives, high-level executives, as the drivers for the delivery service to drive people they're doing big deals with back to the airport. Because a lot of times you have conversations in cabs where they're open and they say whatever they want and they just, that meeting was amazing. We've got them by the bar, But if there's an executive there listening to that, they're just they're not looking in the rearview mirror like paying, but they literally are paying attention, and it's a competitive reconnaissance strategy. So when you are in business discussions, elevators never after a meeting never have conversations in those. Make sure you're outside of the building.
Yeah.
You have to assume always the other parties could hear exactly what you're saying, especially if it's a strategic thing.
Okay.
So anyway, it's a long way of getting at it. Like I turned it off when I went to the bathroom. Do you have, you can hit me with rapid fire if you're out of time. I don't care. I'm up to you. I feel I spoke so much and I feel bad about that.
No,
No,
this
that
has
was
been
the
really
whole point.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
We came to hear you.
Oh, did you? Oh, wow. Because
Yeah.
I saw you took notes. I was hoping you didn't have to take any,
I also retain by taking notes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's helpful. And if I read it 2 more times, I'll really remember it.
So, you said you did have to leave soon, but it's up to you.
Sorry.
No, it's
My
okay.
brother is here visiting from Florida, so I
No,
have
it's
to
okay.
spend time with him.
No.
I really do.
That's so reasonable.
Yeah. But whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
if you want to stay.
I have one more question.
Okay. Yeah.
Would you
Yeah,
like-
go ahead.
Okay. You have time for one more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep it brief.
I guess it's mostly framing advice, but I think mindset and going into something like this is really important. So what mindset do you think is the most critical to success? Or yeah, what's the best way to frame things? What do you need to do with your mindset to get to where you want to be?
I think it's grit. I think it's being stubborn, sometimes to the nth degree, where when people are saying, you just stop, or you should not be doing that, you're wasting your time. For me, often, if people do that, I'm digging my heels in more, right? So the app I was telling you about, I mean, I'm close family and friends were saying, it's so insensitive, don't do it. I just knew it was right. I am doing this. And I think that was just like the epitome of how I do stuff. I'm on the spectrum, as you could probably imagine, and I isolate. It's not tunnel vision, but I just basically turn off the distraction noise and can be ultra focused. And so I think if you can do that, and I'm sure you have, just getting through engineering school, you've had to do that, right? There's so much content that you've had to just learn, but then be clear-headed to be able to take exams. You got to tune it out. Somebody coughing in an exam or something, you can't listen to that. You're just like, you're solving those equations, right? So I think you already have that, but it's a question of now listening to your inner voice over the external voices sometimes, I think, is a real critical element to success, because I think you have the mechanics, certainly the capabilities. The only thing you will be challenged with, I think, as engineers, again, is the creative new ideas. Maybe there's some crazy ones there that would have been so cool. I'd like, we should talk about those. But,
We'll bring them next time.
Happy to do a follow-up. So, but no, for me, actually, is enjoyable.